Hi everyone. A very happy May Day. This is a homemade production from an idea of James Child, who had been our Jack in the Green for quite a few years now. It may be a little rough and ready, as none of us has ever done this before. So I'm just going to tell you about how it goes. I've lost the first page, would you believe? It's in three sections, and the first section will be going over what has happened in the past, and with films and slides and pictures that were taken over the years. So you have to look out for your friends and relations and the people that you've seen before. I know I shall miss the Jack and the Green coming out of the Duke, but next year he'll be back again. I always get a magical feeling when he comes out, knowing that this is the first day of May. The second part will be in the now, and it will be a film made by James Child and Laura Bailey, and I do hope that you enjoy it. So today we are also celebrating Oyster Morris, who have been with us from the very beginning, and sad to say they have had to hang up their bells and hankies. So we're very sad about that, but we really appreciate everything they have done over the years. It's been absolutely brilliant. The last part is the big sing, where we will be on the lawn and we will be singing the May song. So I hope you've had a chance to learn the tune so you can all join in and be with us when we sing. So the first part is when the dancing starts is outside the Whitstable Library, and that begins with dancing there before the procession leaves, with Oyster Morris in the lead, and they dance down the High Street, followed by Great Western Morris and Glory of the West, one of the first sides, along with Wanson Morris, to be invited to our May Day. Then after that, we have a slideshow of the winners and runners-up with the May Day poster competition that is run by the Whitstable and Herne Bay Lions. Now, this was started a long, long time ago, and we must have had hundreds of children entering our poster competition. So I do hope there's a lot of them watching in now, and they're going to see it. So the Lions do such a wonderful job at the castle and raise thousands and thousands of pounds to be spent on charitable projects that are local. They put a lot back into the local community, and we really appreciate what they do. So we have to say a huge thank you to the Lions for all the help, and really we couldn't do it without them. Then we have a film from my grandson Josh, who has put together lots of photographs and movies, and it goes at quite a pace. So I'm sure that you will want to see it again, and I can tell you that it will be on YouTube, and we'll get a chance to catch up with people you've missed. I know I'll be looking at it again pretty much quickly afterwards as well. So don't forget, it will be on YouTube and you can catch up. So I know you've been waiting for this, but the Jack in the Green will come out after all the clips and the movies from the Duke of Cumberland, and you will see him dancing down Harbour Street between the Morris sides, waiting for him to come. This is a film from Linda Fornell, who has been a long time supporter and comes along every year. So enjoy. We have more dancing, and then we up to the harbour, and then from there, after we've done a spot, we go on to the castle. So by now you should know the May Day tune, and you will be able to sing along later on. So here we go.
1st of May is Garland Day, we wish you a joyful May. We hope you like our May garland because it is May Day. A branch of May we have brought you, and at your door we stand. It is but a sprout that is well budded out by the work of our poor hands. The morning is the 1st of May, the primest of the year. So people all both great and small, we wish you a joyful year. We have been wandering all this night and almost all this day, and now returning back again, we brought you in the May. I have a purse upon my arm, it's drawn with a silken string. It only wants a few more pence to line it well within. So give us a cup of your sweet cream or a jug of your strong beer, and if we live to tarry the town will call
Look, in his handsome green attire, eyes burning red like fire, drawing near, he's changing fast to the leaves and flowers of summer's past. Here comes the summer and it's not all bad, they'll never be as good as the ones we've had. Jack of the green, here comes the summer, let's float upstream. Yeah, Jack of the green, here comes the summer, life is but a dream. Coming now like a giant tree, arms and legs all wrapped in ivy, man into vegetation, bringing summer to a frozen nation. Strolling with an abstracted air, wooden teeth and bracken hair, Jack of the green, he reappears as he's been cooled down through the years. And here comes the summer and it's not all bad, they'll never be as good as the ones we've had. Jack of the green, here comes the summer, let's float upstream. Jack of the green, here comes the summer, life is but a dream. Changing the subject, moving quickly along, we're almost ready for another song. Oh yeah! Jack of the green, here comes the summer, let's float upstream. Here comes Jack of the green, here comes the summer, life is but a dream. And he's closely followed by the spring, a flock of storks and a holiday fling, wild green men and chimney sweep, the winter house and the mother's week. Jack of the green, here comes the summer, let's float upstream. Yeah, Jack of the green, here comes the summer, life is but a dream. Plastic fun by the spring, flock of storks and holiday fling, wild green men and chimney sweep. Plastic fun by the spring, flock of storks and holiday fling, wild green men and chimney.
Winter time has gone and passed, oh, summer time has come at last, oh, we shall sing and dance the day, and follow the obvious to bring the May. Hail, hail, the 1st of May, oh, for it is the first summer's day, oh, cast your cares and fears away, drink to the old horse on the 1st of May. Bluebells they are starting to ring, oh, and true love it is the thing, oh, love on any other day is never quite the same as on the 1st of May. Hail, hail, the 1st of May, oh, for it is the first summer's day, oh, cast your cares and fears away, drink to the old horse on the 1st of May. Come to pass, oh, that we fail to raise a glass, oh, unto those now gone away, and left us the obvious to bring the May. Hail, hail, the 1st of May, oh, for it is the first summer's day, oh, cast your cares and fears away, drink to the old horse on the 1st of May. Winter time has gone and passed, oh, summer time
say. And we're all met again in our ribbons so gay. And we're all met again on the first day of spring, to go about dancing with Jack in the Green. Jack in the Green, Jack in the Green, and we'll all dance each springtime with Jack in the Green. Now Jack in the Green, he's a very strange man. Though he dies every autumn, he's born in the spring. And each year on his birthday we will dance through the streets, and in return Jackie will ripen our wheat. Jack in the Green, Jack in the Green, and we'll all dance each springtime with Jack in the Green. With his mantle he'll cover the trees that are bare, and our gardens he'll trim with his jacket so fair. But our fields he will sow with the hair on his head, and our grain it will ripen till the old Jack is dead. Jack in the Green, Jack in the Green, and we'll all dance each springtime with Jack in the Green. Now the sun is half up and betokens the hour that the children arrive with their garlands of flowers. So now let the music and the dancing begin, and toast the good heart of young Jack in the Green. Jack in the Green, Jack in the Green, and we'll all dance each springtime with Jack in the Green.
1st of May is Garland Day. We wish you a merry May. We hope you like our May garland because it is May Day. A branch of May we brought to you, and at your door we stand. It's but a sprout and well budded out by the work of our poor hands.
This morning is the 1st of May, the primest of the year. So people all, both great and small, we wish you a joyful year. We have been wandering all the night and almost all this day, and now returning back again, we brought you in the May.
I have a purse upon my arm drawn with a silken string. It only wants a few pence more to line it well within. Come give us a cup of your sweet cream or a jug of your warm beer, and if we live to tell you the town, we'll call another year.
And he's come down like the grass, and here's the green leaf of the tree as long as life shall last. So why not do as we have done the very 1st of May, and from our parents we have come to run the woods so gay.
And now we bid you all adieu and wish you all good cheer. Call once more unto your house before another year. God bless our land with power and might, send peace by night and day. God send us peace in England and send us a joyful May.
Of May is Garland Day, we wish you a merry May. We hope you like our May garland because it is May Day. A branch of May we brought to you, and at your door we stand. It's but a sprout, but well budded out by the work of our poor hands.
Awake, awake, lift up your eyes and pray to God for grace. Repent, repent of your former sins while ye have time and space. I have been wandering all this night and most part of this day. So now I have come for to sing you a song and to show you a branch of May. A branch of May I have brought you, and at your door it stands. It does spread out, and it spreads all about by the work of our Lord's hands. Man is but a man, his life's but a span. He is much like a flower. He's here today and gone tomorrow, so it's all gone down in an hour. So now I have sung you a little short song, I can no longer stay. God bless you all, both great and small, and I wish you a happy May. a man is life's but a span. He is much like a flower. He's here today and gone tomorrow, so it's all gone down in an hour. So now I have sung you a little short song, I can no longer stay. God bless you all, both great and small, and I wish you a happy May.
The high street, mind the gap, a silver pipe mug and an old top hat, head to toe in emerald green, an old pair of boots, what a better bean. Look, in his handsome green attire, eyes burning red like fire, drawing near, he's changing fast to the leaves and flowers of summer's past. Here comes the summer and it's not all bad, they'll never be as good as the ones we've had. Jack the green, here comes the summer, let's float upstream. Yeah, Jack of the green, here comes the summer, life is but a dream. Coming now like a giant tree, arms and legs all wrapped in ivy, man into vegetation, bringing summer to a frozen nation. Strolling with an abstracted air, wooden teeth and bracken hair, Jack of the green, he reappears as he's been cooled down through the years. And here comes the summer and it's not all bad, they'll never be as good as the ones we've had. Jack of the green, here comes the summer, let's float upstream. Jack of the green, here comes the summer, life is but a dream. Changing the subject, moving quickly along, we're almost ready for another song. Not yet! Jack of the green, here comes the summer, let's float upstream. Here comes Jack of the green, here comes the summer, life is but a dream. And he's closely followed by the spring, a flock of storks and a holiday fling, wild green men and chimney sweep, the winter house and the mother's weep. Jack of the green, here comes the summer, let's float upstream. Yeah, Jack of the green, here comes the summer, life is but a dream. Blessed fun by the spring, flock of storks and Winter time has gone and passed, oh, summer time has come at last, oh, we shall sing and dance the day and follow the obios to bring the May. Hail, hail the 1st of May, oh, for it is the first summer's day, oh, cast your cares and fears away, drink to the old horse on the 1st of May. Bluebells they are starting to ring, oh, and true love it is the thing, oh, love on any other day is never quite the same as on the 1st of May. Hail, hail the 1st of May, oh, for it is the first summer's day, oh, cast your cares and fears away, drink to the old horse on the 1st of May. Never let it come to pass, oh, that we fail to raise a glass, oh, unto those now gone away and left us the obios to bring the May. Hail, hail the 1st of May, oh, for it is the first summer's day, oh, cast your cares and fears away, drink to the old horse on the 1st of May. Winter time has gone and passed, oh, summer time has come at last, oh, we shall sing and dance the day and follow the obios to bring the May. Hail, hail the 1st of May, oh, for it is the first summer's day, oh, cast your cares and fears away, drink to the old horse on the 1st of May. Hail, hail the 1st of May, oh, for it is the first summer's day, oh, cast your cares and fears away, drink to the old horse on the 1st of May. Oh, hail, hail the 1st of May, oh, for it is the first summer's day, oh, cast your cares and fears away, drink to the old horse on the 1st of May.
wish you a joyful May. We hope you like our May garland because it is May Day. A branch of May we have brought you, and at your door we stand. It is but a sprout that is well budded out by the work of our poor hands. The morning is the 1st of May, the primest of the year. So people all both great and small, we wish you a joyful year. We have been wandering all this night and almost all this day, for May. I have a purse upon my arm, it's drawn with a silken string. It only wants a few more pence to line it well within. So give us a cup of your sweet cream or a jug of your strong beer. And if we live to tarry, the town will call another year. The life of man is but a span, he's cut the life of grass. So here's to the green leaves of the tree, as long as life shall last. So why not do as we have done this very first day of May? For from our parents we have come to roam the woods so gay. We bid you all adieu, we wish you all the cheer. We'll call no more into your house until another year. God bless our land with power and might, send peace by night and day. God send us peace in England and send us a joyful May.
Hello and happy May morning. I'm James, I'm usually with Jack. Fortunately this year, instead of having to lumber around in a giant cage covered in leaves, we've been putting up posters to celebrate the procession route of the Jack, so we're going to go along that route now. We start here at the library. This is the art by Charlie Evaristo Boyce. We commissioned him to do a picture of Jack, and we think he really captures the energetic, cheeky nature of Jack. There's also some more art by the children's art winner from last year, so you'll be able to spot that on the way around. So let's go follow the route. So this is where Jack gets ready, and then he emerges from here with Robin Hood and Maid Marian and Hood and Horse and Morris the Bear and all the things. We go round the corner of the Duke, and all the Morris dancers are waiting to process, and then we head up to the castle via the harbour.
Goodness, have you ever seen the High Street and Harbour Street so quiet? So strange. This fantastic representation of the Jack in the Green that you've just watched, it was commissioned specially by James and thought out by James and Laura, and what a wonderful job they did. So thank you so much. It's been absolutely brilliant. Now we have something completely different. We have a musical. Now, let's see. Welcome to a musical treat from Alan Prosser and Ray Sprawson, who have been in the band that accompanies the Jack forever, I think. It seems like it. So have a good time, chaps, and I'm handing over to you.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, can you see? Yeah. Oh, there you are. Oh, good. Hi. I'm Alan Prosser, and this is my friend Ray Sprawson. He's that way. Is he that way? I can't tell. Anyway, yeah, we'd like to talk about the band and what it's like to be in the band when we do the main procession. So what I remember, Ray, is all the confusion around the Duke of Cumberland before that set off, and all the sort of people gathering around deciding what order they're going to get in, and tune. I hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. And it didn't get any better, did it?
No,
it didn't. Shambles. But it was great fun. And I thought that bit where the Jack came out of the Duke of Cumberland and down the middle of all the dancers, it was quite emotional, as I'm an emotional sort of chap, as you know. But yeah, I thought it was, very nice. And of course, there was all the confusion at the beginning of the dance, wasn't there?
Yeah.
So, did we set off? Do we start now? And people were looking as if they were supposed to know.
Who actually did start it? Who actually did start it off? The procession, I mean.
Me? Yeah, I did, because I took it. Yeah,
Oh.
I think I had to take the blame, yes. But that was fine. But yeah, there was always that bit at the beginning where we mucked about whilst we were waiting to set off, and of course there was always that. You never know how many musicians were going to turn up. It could have been 6, or it could have been 106. You just didn't know. They just seemed to appear from out of the darkness, didn't they? But yeah, it was great. But there was the decision. Of course, we're still waiting. They're dithering. Should we get?
Thing I remember is when we set off, everyone played the tune at a different speed and sometimes in a different key. You know, so as you were walking along, you'd be like your own bubble of the tune, and there'd be an advance of you at the front, and then another one behind you, and you're walking along and trying to decide which group of musicians to play with. It was really.
You had to turn around and glare or stare. It sort of brought everybody back into line a little bit. Hang on. Oh, yes.
And then the line would stretch as well.
Yes.
And you'd wait while a dance went on, and then you'd have to sort of start off again. You know, it was always start, wasn't it?
I know, it was amazing. That was great fun, though, wasn't it? It was a bit of a giggle, really. I mean, dancers didn't think so, but. And then we had Mr. Chris Wood was one of the chaps that joined in with the drum, and he managed to keep it all together somehow.
Well, he did. Yeah, it was a loud drum, wasn't it? It used to be in the Boys' Brigade, I think, and that's where he got the snare drum from. And
and all the old players that used. Who was that? There was Chris Taylor used to turn up, didn't he? And of course your good self and any other members of the Oyster Band that were around.
Well, all the people that used to go to the Duke's Folk Club used to turn out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and
others, Ralph Jordan, for instance, Don Minifee, once or twice, I think, at least. You know, and as the years progressed, you know, visiting Morrisside would play with us sometimes instead of playing with their own band. You know, so we had people like Trevor. What was that guy played? Trevor the Tuba.
Trevor the Tuba, yeah.
Yeah, he was really good. Yeah. I joined the brass section for a while because I inherited Howard's trombone. Do you remember?
Oh yes.
And I tried to play it last year.
I kept
forgetting about the monster at the end.
I was going to say about the brass section. I mean, that was wonderful. I mean, there was Chris Kerr and also Howard before yourself.
That's right, yeah.
And Alan Greenwood, of course. And I mean, it was a wonderful band.
Had that cornet with a knob missing.
Yeah, and it sounded like it. I mean, it was a sound to be revered, really. I mean, it'll always stick in the memory.
Yeah. And the noise of the snare drum when we went to the arch. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes. Saying about that. Yes. Go for it under the arch. Yeah. Memories.
And of course, before him, was it Bernard Brown played the drum?
Yeah, Bernard. Yeah, young Bernard.
Yeah,
And who was else I was thinking of? Oh, there was, of course, Chris Kershaw, the bagpipes,
yeah, that's right. Yep.
and
What kind
Sonia the whistle, who had James the hood and horse man.
yeah, yeah.
They were all there.
Turner, Nick Passmore, the list on and on. Think of many.
I know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway,
sorry.
I was always worried your arms were going to drop off by the end of it. Actually.
Yeah, well, you was the only one that was concerned. Nobody else cared.
Play that tune, but I don't know. How many times did you play that tune?
Well, Ralph Jordan counted it to 105 times.
105. Jeez.
I know.
And then again on the lawn afterwards.
I know. Can you just play it again? Amazing. Yeah, and we were talking about the
I must have played it on every instrument of my own, actually, just to try and get above the melodeon, because the melodeon and the melodeon and the drum, because they're quite loud. So the best one I ever found was to play it on a tin whistle. And I remember me and Smart Min going along playing these tin whistles like they were fifes in an American marching band, you know, playing all those trills and things. That was really good. That really worked.
Yeah,
and I tried it on the electric guitar through a small amp, and that didn't work at all. That was awful. I remember somebody else tried that as well.
Yeah,
Penelope's man.
Ian. What was his name? Ian.
Ian.
Yes, Ian, and he had playing his Strat, a little tiny amp about 4 inches square, sounded like a flight of bumblebees. It was great.
And I played the banjo, and I played the fiddle, and I played what else? I played the fiddle, and I brought the bowed psaltery along one time because I thought that'll cut. Like soaring a block of wood.
Yeah. And we were always talking at the beginning, when there was loads of time to waste, that we ought to change perhaps from a major key into the minor key. We were always mucking about with that. Do you think?
Yeah.
Did you ever find a solution to that?
I did, but it was really mournful. Actually, it was something like that, sort of really mournful. Sorry, Ray.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh.
We did it reggae one year as well. Do you remember? We did reggae.
Yes.
On the High Street.
Yes, there's nothing to getting a look from the dancers when you're playing a bit of reggae in the High Street. Oh, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, it was all great fun, wasn't it? All jolly good. But
I've just noticed that in the video, my nose is slightly bent to one side. Oh, you see that? Oh.
It is a bit, yeah. Did you pay much for that operation?
No. By the way, I like your beard trim. Did you do that?
Oh, yes. Nice. Oh, hang on. Anyway, yeah, and then of course there were stops on the way, weren't there, down through the procession where there was a bit of Morris dancing.
Yeah.
And I'd like to play one of the tunes. I expect you'd like to hear it, would you?
I would. I'd really like to hear it, Ray.
One of the dances they always seemed to do was William and Nancy's.
Do you just have a melodeon to hand, by any chance?
It just happened to be here, yes.
Very good, very good.
Anyway, just a little taste. Yes, I don't want marks out of 10 either.
I used to sneak off and get an ice cream when that was going on.
Anyway, do you remember in the procession? I forget which year it was, and it chucked it down. We had a heavy storm with winds, and the whole procession disappeared into the bar of the yacht club.
Ah, yes.
We topped up on whiskey, and it was so cold. And yeah, I think there must have been about 400 Morris dancers in, which didn't get a very good reception, I must say, from the yacht club. But it was, jolly good fun. Well, it was for our point.
No, generally we had really good weather, didn't we? I mean, most years it was really nice.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we didn't. We I think we had a bit of a lot of luck really when we saw what they said forecast. Well, it's the microclimate you see in Whitstable. Yeah.
Indeed. Yes. Yeah. But I mean, I remember most years it being really hot and windy sometimes, but mostly really hot. And having gone prepared for the weather, having to carry coats and cases and stuff, and wishing we left them all in the car, basically.
Yes, it's right.
Wishing we left them in the car.
Well, of course, just to make sure we were well prepared, we used to get an old dustbin liner and cut the end out and stick the melodeons in there, so at least we could still play them. Do you remember that? All the black bin liners down the road.
Yeah. Well, I just remember kind of, all the partners of the musicians sort of trucking along beside us, carrying all these cases, and just in case it really poured.
Grinning.
Yeah. How many melodeons did you go through? I mean,
I don't know. They fell apart quite frequently.
Yeah, we used to muck about. Right, what are we doing? Okay, let's have a tune. Any old iron. No, we won't do that. Okay, what else can we talk about?
Well, so what else?
How's your love life?
Well, hey. I was going to say, because I'm now a retired oyster musician, but I mean, I use the word retired. I mean, the pension's rubbish. I can't recommend it to anybody. Are you retired from the band yet?
No, not yet. No, it's still sort of moseying along.
Yeah,
I was supposed to be making an album. To make it all by internet is really proving quite difficult because. John being out in the sticks, and all that stuff, and getting it all together. We're still writing, but I must admit, it's slowing down. It's the lockdown feeling,
Yeah.
Not to put too fine a point on it. It's getting to a place where, if I have a good idea, I think, I'll do that tomorrow. And,
That's the way.
It's really lazy, but it's just the way it's going.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, we've gone through names who were in the procession, there's still some names that come. We haven't mentioned any of the Morris musicians who, of course, were in the procession, which was Pete Darby, Mary Stars, Mark Joplin, and of course all the other musicians from the visiting Morris sides, which also joined in. Some of them didn't know the tune, but they did at the end.
How could you forget it?
Yeah. So I don't think I was trying to think of anybody who've missed out. I mean, if we have, then we will apologise now. But you know who you are, and we'll thank everybody who was in that procession, the procession throughout the years. Yeah. Anyway, who else was
there? There was
Nick Passmore.
We mentioned Alan Greenwood, didn't we? Yeah.
Yeah. You missed him out.
Trevor from Gas. Trevor was from Gas Mark 5. That's who I was trying to think of.
Yeah.
Who else? Ian Keary. Mentioned Ian Keary. Keith Cook, of course. Debbie Cook's husband. And of course we always used to gather at the end of it all, and and the afternoon wouldn't finish with a procession. It would just go on and on and on, wouldn't it? Dancing along and all that stuff.
With a stomach full of fish and chips, and,
Yeah,
and sometimes a
the,
session afterwards with the beer and stuff.
yeah,
It was a real feast.
the arrival of the fish and chips. I remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and they were always soggy and cold, but they were the best fish and chips in the world at that time, weren't they?
yeah. You'd worked up a hunger. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
good.
yeah.
How are we doing? We're doing quite well.
Yeah.
So not used to doing this. So used to just keeping it going. So we've got to think on our feet a bit.
Yeah, and I mean,
It's good for us, really.
I tell you, haven't mentioned Pete Pogle.
Oh yeah, right. Did
I
he
mean,
ever
he was
play
one of the, he was one of the
dulcimer on
old,
that?
he was one of the old stalwarts, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
I think he tried playing his hammer dulcimer once, strung round his neck, but ended up with a playing a bouzouki, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right. And I just heard, I just heard because my Jane came down and told me, with Johnson and the Hackfords as well.
Who?
Adrian Hackford on the
Oh
fiddle,
God, yeah,
Anthony Johnson, Tom Johnson on the fiddle as well. All those
yeah.
people. Yeah, not all the time, but every now and then, and they took sabbaticals every now and then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
God, yeah.
so many people.
But,
Yeah, and we're still doing it. We're still doing it online.
huh?
We're still doing it online. Yeah.
Should I do another tune? Or you can do
Can we
another
play one
tune?
together? Yeah. Does it work if we do one together?
No, it won't work, will it? No, I don't think.
Haven't we got to that point yet?
No.
Go on then, play another tune.
Oh, that one I do. Yeah.
Oh, I'm in the wrong key.
Did that go
That
together,
seems.
or was it completely out of sync?
No, it was fine for me.
Was it?
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah.
Oh God, that's the first. Sorry. Anyway, yes, brilliant memories with all this joviality together. I mean, we've had so much fun. It's been a good life, hasn't it?
Yeah, been really good. Seeing that Whitstable scene's been really good for me, and it's been good for a lot of my friends. So yeah, blessings really.
Yeah,
blessings.
Yeah, and winding up Rian with when the Morris tunes went slightly askew into a bit of jazz or anyway, yeah. So yeah, it was fine. I've really enjoyed myself, and it's been a good life. It's yeah, something really to look back on, and it is quite emotional, really, isn't it? All this.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. Ah, good.
Anyway,
Okay.
I think. Well, it's been nice talking to you, young Alan.
Yeah, you too. Yeah. After this lockdown lock, we should get it together and play something.
Yeah, I know.
I always remember you playing Israelites. Do you remember that?
I do. I'm not doing it now.
No, of course not. No. Yeah, your birthday bash.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think it's time to do a thing. Anyway, bye. Cheerio.
Nice.
Bye.
Great. Thanks, Ray and Alan, for that, whatever that was. It was brilliant. Now, we've got an amazing film coming up by James, Sonia, Rowan, and the Hidden Horse about the experience of being part of the procession, part of the tradition. They've been, for as long as I've been doing it, which is about 12 years, I think they've been part of it with a horse, which is great. So they've put together a film, and here it is. It's called Being Horse. And I'm still here. Hi.
The one within sees through a veil, dust and cloth, a column of wood, blurs and bursts of light, a checkerboard of seeing. Hessian presses close, obscuring forms and distances, but my glass eye takes you in. You look at me and see the hinge and snap. I am a swaying pillar of sackcloth moving in steady time. I am coming towards you. I am immovable. I go where I will. My flanks are creased. My mane is a tangle of yarn. Hawthorn blossom hangs, flesh and honey sweet, at my leather ears. I taste the rust of the sea between hobnailed teeth. The harbour wall. The one within cannot see its feet. Tread carefully. Its arms grow numb with weight and lack of use. Sweat gathers in its hairline. The ground moves, narrows to a point, a top-heavy bipedal balancing act. All feeling is there in the soles. Precipice and pebble, oyster shells sharp-edged, waiting in their unmade beds of grit and silt, broken bottles, the stinging ring pools of cans, picnic debris, the detritus of passers-by, flotsam, jetsam, fibres of transit. I rise above, aloft, a pedestal. Listen. Do you hear the waves against the drum? Do you hear the gulls against the tread and skip? I am coming. Watch me, the prow of a ship, pressing a path. The wet iron stink of crabstick and whelk, the blue and gold borders of fish market, the seaside familiars. I am aloof. I am a stalker. I am the stealer of ice creams, the terror of babes, the rousing roister-doister of dog walkers, the bane of bus drivers. I preen, I pose, I pounce. You may not look at me now, but you feel me here. I am impossible. You refuse me, turn away, but you will not forget me. I am the mote in the eye, the unfeasible at the edges, unfathomable. Pretend you cannot see me if you must. I see you. We see you. We are relentless.
Kneel on your knees. 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 Good. You can stay there.
Robin and Marion, this way.
Marion, this way. This way.
We now have the arrival of Jack on the green, just coming into the arena now.
Right, we traditionally show now the singing of the main song.
Thank you, James Frost, for that movie from the keeper of our Whitstable Puddin Horse. And now, 9-year-old Emily Finnis has attended every May Day since she was born and wants to be a Morris dancer. She has made a film herself doing just that for us. Thank you, Emily.
Say guys.
It's going to be down to James and I now to introduce the May song. So I hope you're all ready for it. You've got your programs, you've got your words. So please join us for Kathy and John singing the May Day song.
The 1st of May is Garland Day. We wish you a merry May. We hope you like our May garland because it is May Day. A branch of May we have brought you, and at your door we stand. It is but a sprout, but well budded out by the work of our poor hands. This morning is the 1st of May, the primest of the year. So people all, both great and small, we wish you a joyful year. We have been wandering all the night and almost all this day, and now returning back again, we've brought you in the May.
I have a purse upon my arm, drawn with a silken string. It only wants a few more pence to line it well within. Come give us a cup of your sweet cream or a jug of your fine beer. And if we live to tarry the time, we'll call another year. The life of man is but a span, is cut down like the grass. So here's to the green leaves of the trees as long as life shall last. So why not do as we have done this very 1st day of May, as from our parents we have come to roam these woods so gay.
And now we bid you all adieu, wish you all good cheer. We call once more unto your house before another year. God bless our land with power and might, send peace by night and day. God send us peace in England, send us a joyful May.
The 1st of May is Garland Day. We wish you a merry May. We hope you like our May garland because it is May Day. A branch of May we have brought you, and at your door we stand. It is but a sprout, but well budded out by the work of our poor hands.
Brilliant. Thanks, you two, and Ray as well. That was brilliant. That was lovely. So there we have it. With the Jacks made it all the way up to the castle. We've had the song, and now we're scrambling off to eat fish and chips and talk about everything. So obviously, people might not know who some of you may be, but they certainly don't know who I am. So I'm James. I joined Oyster Morris about 12, 13 years ago, and I've been the Jack for about 8 years of that. So could everyone introduce themselves? Dixie, do you want to start?
I'm Dixie, and along with Kathy and Ian and Alan and Chris, we had the idea that we could make a better festival than the one we'd just been to.
John?
Yeah, my name's John Jones, and yeah, I'm a member of the Oyster Band.
Ian?
I suppose I am a member of the Oyster Band too, to this day. I was a kind of a bit player going back to 1976, but I did have a rather large room in a squat called the City of Canterbury, which was very suitable for people rehearsing in, so I did have a part to play.
Jo?
I'm Jo, Dixie's eldest daughter. Dixie and I ran the folk club in Whitstable, Duke's Folk, as it ended up, and it's because of that that we have the May Day celebrations.
Alan? Say hi. Again?
Also a member of the Oyster Band, and long-time collaborator with most of these people, and it is what it is.
Elaine Ray, say hi.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
I'm Elaine and my husband Ray. The reason I'm here today is because I joined Oyster in 1978. Not an original member, but until after Rhian's death was the longest serving Oyster Morris person. And Ray?
Yes, I joined a few years later when I first met Elaine and became musician for Oyster, and I have been ever since.
Until we retired.
Last year.
Kathy.
I'm Kathy Lesurf. I was the first Maid Marian. I'm a one-time member of the Oyster Band. And when John first did Oyster Morris workshops, rather, as they were then, in Whitstable, I turned out, because of course we did. And so I actually did dance a bit of Morris with the Oyster women at one time or another. And going back before that, of course, there was Fiddler Stram, who rehearsed extensively in Ian's lodge room. In fact, he could never get rid of us. In fact, he developed a habit of withdrawing a toothbrush from his pocket and cleaning his teeth as a signal that it was time we went to bed.
I'd forgotten. Excellent.
And of course, long-term devotee of Duke's Folk, which was a wonderful hub for everybody.
Great, well that's brilliant. Dixie, can you start by just telling us about, and Joe, about the Duke's Folk Club and take us from there?
It all started with an advert in the paper saying, would anybody like to help me start a folk club? And I just returned from Canada and loved folk music and thought, well, why not? So I joined for a while and we had it in Herne Bay. But then the guy who'd started it off decided he didn't want to do it after all. So Joe and I moved it to Whitstable. And I'm trying to think of the first place that we had it. Where was the first place, Joe?
It was the Working Men's Club under the bridge and up the road.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And we took our logo from a tin tray that we had that had a lion on it. I can't remember why on earth we used it, but we did. And it was it was too small because we almost immediately outgrew it.
Yes, that's right. And the landlord was not a very kind person.
He didn't much like us, did he?
He came in on Christmas, the Christmas club, and decided that he wanted to get rid of us. So he upended the table with the candles and the mince pies on and say, Tempest, Fugit, get out now. So we did rapidly and moved round the corner to the Coach and Horses.
And that was a really nice place, wasn't it? Except that it was also too small.
So then we moved into the Duke of Cumberland and everybody came with us and the club just grew and prospered for so many years. It was quite amazing.
Excellent. So then you've mentioned it already. You and Kathy went to a folk festival in London, was it? Which was pretty cool.
This festival, because I really wanted Fiddler's Dram to play in London so that they could, make themselves known and to encourage them. And the festival, the concert on the Saturday night was brilliant. But on the Sunday, when we went over to the Students' Union, where they were going to have Fiddler's Dram playing, the place was in an absolute tip. So being a bossy boots, I said, come on, let's get this cleared up, which we did. And then, of course, we moaned about the fact that it was so badly organised. We've got to do something better than that. So soon after that, the council moved out of Whitstable Castle. So it used to be Whitstable Urban District Council, but we became Canterbury Council, and they moved out of there and they were going to turn it into a community centre. So Kathy and I went along and we spent time with Arthur and he showed us all the way around and we said, yes, let's book it. When's a good date? Kathy?
What?
We got to
Carry
be
on.
booking the castle.
No, this is fantastic. You carry on, Dixie. I'm really enjoying this.
Arthur showed us round, so we said, what is a good date? And it must have been early in the year, so we said, what about May the 1st? So we booked it, and that was just great. And then we had to work out what we were going to do. We didn't have any money. We had a small pot in the folk club, but not very much money. So I had the idea of going to the library and looking up all the charities in Whitstable and writing to them and offering them a stall in the castle grounds for a very small fee, as they were charities. And that's how that bit started. And they did. They came along and they gave us their money and we could publicise it. And yes, and then it grew from there. And I'll let Kathy and Joe tell you about the visit to Wallace Harvey, the historian.
Joe.
Well, he was a lovely, lovely man, and he knew everything there was to know about Whitstable. And he had loads of photographs and so many memories. And he had this very faint memory when he was a child of a May Day procession that used to take place in Whitstable, at which point our ears all pricked up. And Kathy said, "Oh, was there a tune?" And he said, "Oh, well, I can only remember the first two lines." So he sang what he could remember, and Kathy looked at us and she said, "Well, we can do something with that, can't we?" And that was how the Whitstable May song came to be. Kathy took two lines and a very faint memory of a very elderly man by then, and turned it into a song which I must have sung thousands and thousands of times. In fact, everyone here must have sung or played it thousands and thousands of times.
Yeah, John and Kathy, do you want to talk about writing the tune and the song?
Well, it was, yeah, I mean, I remember the two lines. And then the next thing I remember, well, I do remember saying, I've got lyrics for traditional folk songs. Then I remember probably being in Ian's room with John, certainly in a room anyway, a small room, and John and the Melodian. And we just kind of, it just happened because, well, it sounds natural, doesn't it? The tune sounds like it all fits together. And I think it just came about, I think.
I mean, there was this great collection of musicians, all of us there, this coincidence of people. And we were all into rediscovering our past, rediscovering this rich tapestry of folk music. And here was a festival on our doorstep with a great story. And it had a picture of the Jack, and also this a melodeon player was there at the side of the street, and a triangle player. Well, that was it. I mean, for us and for me as a melodeon player, it had to have a tune, and that tune seemed absolutely right for it. And I think Kathy borrowed some verses from the Bedfordshire May Carol, because so many places, different places have got these May songs. They're like Christmas carols, but you put them to May to welcome in the May. And so we had a tradition, and as already is clear, we'd fallen under the spell of Dixie Fletcher, as she was then, and Duke's folk. And Maurice dancing had come along, country dancing, Ceilidh dancing had come along. And here was a chance to get out in the streets and dress up and be part of our own tradition. And I mean, we did, and my goodness me, it just lasted.
Yeah, I think it's one of those moments in time, isn't it, really? It's, we inherited an awful lot of stuff. I mean, certainly for me, my sort of, in the background, my family used to sing a lot, so I had some folk songs in the blood, but I didn't really know anything about the English tradition. And then round about that time, people were recording it, and then we started going looking for it. And it just seemed such a, I don't know, just lit a spark, really. It was just the music. It was the music I wanted to sing. And it felt so natural. So whereas I'm not a trained musician, obviously I have always sung all the time. So the voice is my instrument and I use it to express everything I want or anything that I want to express, as well as to tell stories. And it feels very natural to me. So creating a tune is more like the tune grows organically. But it was, of course, set within this idea of traditional music. So I think, you know, that whole thing about the 70s revival is really interesting because, you know, there was obviously the sort of earlier Cecil Sharp days, as it were, when people were collecting things, but that tradition was already dying away. But there were still people who remembered the songs and the tunes. And I think probably our generation, we had grandparents, but it all got rolled together with variety and music hall and World War songs. And I never really, for me, a tune is a tune. And that was the kind of, give me the first two lines, I've got the feel of it, here's where it's going. Plus which, of course, I've always been fascinated by traditions, folk tradition, because that comes from people's imagination and it comes from their lives and it comes from their hearts. And yeah, I've always been fascinated by that. So the possibility, I think, of drawing together all this cultural tradition that we were falling in love with and putting it, as John said, on the street. So really, courtesy of Dixie, we had a community to bed it into and from which it had come as well. So you kind of give it back, you remake it and give it back. It felt like something, a perfect moment in time, you know, a perfect gathering of resources. And there we were. And off it went. And how many years, Dixie?
44 years.
Can't possibly be. None of us are that old.
Maybe not.
I think that's an excellent account, Kathy. That's of a moment in time. That's exactly a very fine description of it. And in a way, the writing of the rewriting of the Whitstable May song mimics what happened in orally transmitted circumstances. We're given half of a tune and nobody could remember the next line, but hey, here's a suitable line from another song I know, and that must have happened for centuries in the transmission of songs orally. So in a very apt way, I think it recreated the folk process. A very loaded word, authentic, but it was authentic in that limited sense anyway.
Well, it's 44 years old now, so it's traditional.
It's older than me.
At the risk of sounding academic, but that doesn't normally inhibit me, there's a great book by Hugh Trevor Roper called The Invention of Tradition, in which he points out that actually all traditions are invented by somebody at some point in some circumstances. He's got some fantastic examples, like the invention of tartan is one of them. It doesn't go back to the year dot. It was invented by Walter Scott and a committee of people who wanted to welcome George IV to Edinburgh, etc., etc., etc. Anyway, I wonder whether the Whitstable May procession was itself a revival, a kind of Victorian quasi-Gothic revival of something that had existed even before that. We'll never know, of course, but it's...
No. I think that's interesting because if you look at that photo that we just saw, the costume they're wearing looks very Elizabethan, quasi-Elizabethan. And that whole, if I remember rightly, Henry VIII dressing up as Robin Hood, they themselves were harking back to an earlier time, as the Victorians harked back to an earlier. We're always looking for that lost golden age, aren't we?
It's the authentic. Mysterious unicorn called the authentic. Yes,
I think Wallace Harvey's also his story or recollection or whatever, the rumor that someone had died within the Jack.
That's right.
Had burnt to death, and that's why it stopped. Fitted with the the atmosphere of the whole thing as well. It just gave it that that strange. I suppose it was sort of historic reality, the idea that it really did happen at one point, but it was the burning to death of the guy within it that had stopped it.
Sounds like a folk story to me, but it might have been true. We don't
He
know.
always said it was in the paper. I don't know whether that was true. The truth is, as Kathy said, we were ready to believe it. We were ready to take
Yeah.
and run with it. And at the same time, the Oyster Ceilidh band was developing, and we were fascinated by dance. So Kathy and I were devising dances. We were putting tunes to them, and we were trying to develop something that was, again, authentically ours, that didn't belong to any other region or any other dance band. And that fitted also with the growth of the Morris and the procession. So the two things, I mean, for me, certainly, with teaching the Morris and also with being a part of the Ceilidh band, that was a magical time also. And that was just another part of what we were doing.
Duke's Folk was very, very important because it was not only a very successful club that could book all the best people on the acoustic folk scene in those days, in the 70s and 80s, and through which the likes of myself and Kathy and John met all kinds of interesting and significant singers and people, often in Dixie's sitting room with alcohol involved. But the club itself had a social function. People went there to meet their friends. People maybe went there to pick somebody up. Who do we know? How do we know? But
We'd never miss if we were there. We'd always go. It was going out. That's what going out was.
yeah, despite the landlord.
Dixie will probably speak to this, but a benefit concert for Duke's Folk, I think with the Watersons and Martin Carthy and various people, to get them to the club for a special concert, the first ever, in a sense, Oyster Band Ceilidh happened at the Sydney Cooper Centre in Canterbury, where 13 people,
3 times,
loosely called the Whitstable Oyster Company Ceilidh Band, and just did this dance. That was our first ever Ceilidh. That was the first time we'd done anything. And that was all linked to the
It was
club
in
as well.
September 1987. Is that right?
What? I don't know.
September 1987? Does that
I
sound
think
right?
it was before that.
It was 1976, I think.
Yeah, that sounds
Was it?
right.
Oh, crikey. Maybe I meant 78.
1976.
Yes,
And
you
it
did.
was the great Whitstable Oyster Company Ceilidh band.
Yeah.
Snappy.
Yeah.
You could always
We
pick
did
them.
3 of them. We did 3 of them because we were trying, as John said, trying to raise enough money to get the Waterstones and Martin Carthy along. And I think the first time there were about 27 of you on stage. And I think we ended up with 75, something like that.
Narrowed it down over the years.
It just grew and grew and grew.
I think, yeah, absolutely magical. Absolutely magical. There were so many people wanting to sing and dance and play. And we all loved each other. You know, it didn't matter that whether we got on, fell out, whatever, it didn't matter. We'd all go, and it was this big melting pot, and it just rolled around the country after that. Used to roll to other pubs and roll to festivals, and it was very magical. It was very special.
It really was. And those of us who couldn't dance, who couldn't sing or play an instrument, we set up, if you remember, a sort of demonstration set to show people, because Ceilidhs weren't really in then. It was still quite new. So we set up a demonstration set to show the dances, which was really just an excuse for us to go everywhere too. We had 2 or 3 of the most magical summers ever. But that's where Oyster Morris came from as well, because having learned all these wonderful country and folk dances, Kathy, didn't you teach us the Canaries?
Oh, yes.
You remember that?
I do. I had a love of medieval dance because going back to sort of early English dance, it crosses over with French dance, and then there's a little bit where it sort of mixes up with court dance. That's sort of, again, that Tudor period. So there was a book called Orchesography, where one of the first books that recorded dances and notated dance tunes as well. So yeah, that's right. The Canaries came from there. So because we did the Morris, we had the Morris workshops, we had the all in that Duke of Cumberland place.
Yep.
So we just
room. We had the folk club. We had the Morris meeting.
Yep.
And I ran some early dance workshops there as well at some point.
They were great. They were great. And we did the Mummers plays at Christmas.
Yep. And a whole Christmas show, if I remember rightly.
We did.
Yes.
And there were always workshops, Dixie. Do you remember that? There was always a workshop. And what's the, there'll be a workshop on this theme or a workshop on that theme. And John would always come up with half a dozen songs from somewhere that nobody had ever heard of.
That was my thing. It's interesting with the Morris being attached to that, because just watching the processions and seeing those early photographs that we did this afternoon, just seeing the Oyster Morris throughout the years, and also so many of the guests that we had there, because it became a place for other Morris teams on the Morris sides to come, because we had a great day. They were looked after very well. They had a fantastic time. They were part of something with us here. So I'm pretty sure that with my West Country connections, we had Glory of the West and Great Western first, and subsequently Shropshire Bedlams and Martha Rodens. And they became part of it as well. And also, as Kathy said, that's the way you spread these things out. And I'm sure Oyster Morris, in years afterwards, would travel to their places as well, to their regions and dance. I mean, Rainy Lane.
Say, John, sorry. I was doing adult education for English folk dancing at Warehorn, and one day the tutor couldn't come, and two young lads, Alan Greenwood and John Jones, came to teach us Bonnie Green Garters. And I thought, what is this thing? Because I didn't know about Morris dancing, and that was in 1977, and I was really hooked. And a year later, I plucked up courage to join Oyster Morris, and I thought you were all gods. I just was amazed by it. I'd never come across anything like it before, having come from a South London estate, and it was just wonderful. And it completely changed my life. It was amazing. And I went to all the Warehorn Cayleys, and a time when Chris Taylor fell off the stage. Do you remember? Yes. And it was just brilliant. And learning horses brawl in the Sydney Cooper Centre was amazing for me. I just loved it. And it's been such a part of our lives, hasn't it? And it's been amazing. And I've read all really. And it's a shame that I wasn't there right from the very start. But it was 78, so it's quite a long time anyway.
Well, I think you've probably danced the May procession more than anybody else, haven't you? I think the longest standing Oyster and
you must have,
I missed 3 times. Once I was pregnant, the other one, and I still walked it. Once I had an operation and walked it, and once I pulled my Achilles tendon and walked it. But I've always done it. Yeah.
Have you noticed it changing over the years? Can you give people an idea of how it's changed over the years?
For me, the May Day has been the same. It's got that same magical feel about it. Whatever team we've had to stay, like John was saying, Great Western and Ironman and Seven Guilders, we've had some brilliant teams, but that magical moment where the Jack comes out, to me, it was just like, shivers down my spine. And I showed everybody earlier, each year I save a bit of the Jack and I pick it off, and not even thinking there's somebody in there, just go up and pick it off and save it all year for good luck for Ray and I. And then now this year I haven't got anything to pick off anyway. But it's been amazing. And through it, our children are both folk musicians now. It's been a brilliant life. And thank you, Whitstable. It's amazing. Thank you. But it's still the same. It has been still the same. But hard work as we were getting older to organise it all.
I think it's really wonderful to hear you say that, Elaine. And going back, when you were saying you joined in 78, at that time you would have come under the tutorship, the teaching of Rhiannon Collinson, late great Rhiannon, and you'd have loved something like this, just to be here talking about it. Who took over the teaching of the women, and it was incredible, really, because the standard just went up and up. She was a great teacher. Everybody was part of something, and to see a side develop. And remember that the women's side were before the men, as far as Oyster were concerned, and just take it, you know, and win at festivals, win best dance side, and so on. All of that comes from, you know, what we've been talking about. These, in a sense, humble beginnings in one small room in the Duke of Cumberland, where the folk club and everything took place. Great stuff.
I want to say.
Sorry, Dixie. When I first started, I didn't, because I wasn't a folkie, I didn't know what a foreman was. Anyway, I soon found out what a foreman was.
I have a really good memory of the first time that the women's side went out. I'd been asked to do one evening down at the Broadstairs Folk Festival, and I booked the main artist, and we went down there with Martin Simpson, and somebody came through to where we were performing and said, would your Morris side like to come and dance in the main ballroom where all the dancers were? So I said yes, let them go down there and do their stuff. So off they went down there and they performed. Well, you've never heard such a furore that went on after that. Everywhere I went, people were going, how can you have women Morris dancers? Yes. They can't do it. They can't do it. Everywhere I went, I got stick for quite a long time. But the thing was, they were so good that they couldn't criticize their dancing.
It was satisfying.
It was quite groundbreaking at the time, wasn't it? With the Women's Federation starting, and
it was. We spent a lot of time explaining to people that yes, it was originally men, but when they all buggered off to war, people still wanted to keep the traditions alive because it was believed that they played a part in the fertility of the fields, the fertility of the orchards. And so that's why the women took up the hankies and sticks in the first place. So, you know, as far as we were concerned, we had as much right to dance the Morris as anyone. And it's nice to see now, these days, no one even queries that.
We're the proud owners.
Secretly somewhere.
Sorry.
I bet they do query it secretly somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
I must say, Morris politics was never the aspect of the folk tradition that appealed to me very much. Glad things have changed.
The same, Ray and I are proud owners of an Esperance dance book with all the women dancing. We got part 1, haven't we? Yeah. Yeah. So I danced Morris in my own right. Absolutely.
So what about the Oyster Band then, and the Cayleys and things that were around that? Was that happening just in Whitstable, or was it all over?
We played just about everywhere in Kent, in East Kent, every weekend, village halls, you know, and people would follow us. People would come to the Cayleys wherever they were, down Warehorns, down near Romney Marsh, so down in sort of outlying village halls. Great big sheds where tomatoes were grown out in sort of Thanet, and village halls here, there, everywhere. It was just incredible. Every weekend we would be 2 Cayleys, Friday and Saturday, and I suppose really that was the beginning of it becoming more than just a pastime, you know, more than just a hobby, whatever. We were, I mean, Fiddler's Dram were playing, could play during the week at folk clubs. The Oyster Cayley Band were beginning to do songs as well. Kathy singing and myself singing. And festivals then invited us. You know, I think Sidmouth Festival first. And this was a dream come true. This was Valhalla to go there, you know, to be invited down to Sidmouth. And I think the first time we went for tickets only. no fee. You went down there, you played the whole week. But to get your Morris side down there and your Cayley band down there, so you were all down there, all part of it, and together for the whole week, was, you know, I mean, that was perfect. You just had a fantastic time.
Mm.
I guess the whole thing got more and more serious because we suddenly realized we could make a living out of it. We were in demand. Kathy was in demand as a singer. We were beginning to find gigs on our own and move into folk clubs and so on. Well, you know, the rest is history, as they say. But I mean, so many things grew from then. When we moved into the 80s, it was very, very difficult for us that started it to remain central to it. And I think we were happy in a sense to, because we were moving away, we were moving so much and we were becoming professional at what we did. We left it to other people who took it on and did a fantastic job.
I remember we went to Sidmouth that time with you all, and we were supposed to be the first women's Cotswold team to dance in the arena, which is a very proud moment. I think people might dispute that, but that's what we were told. So
yeah.
Can I just go back to those first Cayleys that we did as well, because that was another amazing burst of energy. As you say, John, people followed us. Everybody and everybody in Kent would get involved in the Cayley. It was what you did. And if you had an endless PTAs, do you remember PTAs were always having Cayleys, birthdays, weddings, never mind, it's Friday, let's have a Cayley. You know, it's every weekend we played, but people, although there would be people that would just be there at this or that gig, there was a body of dancers who came to all of them, and we actually brought people on in their skills as dancers. So you'd start off with very simple dances, and here may I reference the wonderful Caris. Remember Caris?
Of course.
Go bananas.
Say again?
Go bananas.
Our battle cry.
Yeah. Or I'm coming amongst you. Dancers would quake with fear. But you know, she called very simple dances. I'd never seen any Cayley dancing before. I began my learning from her, but the dances started there, and then we got more and more and more complicated. And I know some of the dances that we were creating in the end were actually quite complex. Many years later, many years later, for various reasons, I decided to put some Cayleys together where I live now in the East Midlands, and the people I was working with had no tradition of it, and so and so and so and so. And I sort of organised a few Cayleys, and I'd forgotten just how high the skill bank was actually of the dancers that I remembered from our early days, and I was sore tried to get them through the basics, let alone, you know, the more yeah, my goodness me, yeah. No.
So you weren't stripping the willow and...
well, if you strip the willow, you'd have to allow a lot of time. When they got there, in the end, it was good. But forget your poussets, I can tell you now. But yeah, I can still see, you know, like Andy Turner's mum and dad.
Yes, yes.
Bob and Jean, I can see them dancing now. I can see them taking the floor, and they were wonderful dancers to watch. I've got great memories. Some of my best memories of watching people dancing at Cayleys. Because although I don't personally get a whole kick out, a lot out of actually the calling part of it, but when the dance floor comes alive and people are so in it and so happy, it's wonderful, isn't it? The Cayleys were wonderful.
Used to love that thing where they, especially Bob and Jean Turner, where they'd go and sit down exhausted after they danced. Bob had had enough, but Jean would then hear what the next dance was going to be, and back up she would come, and Bob would join her, or someone else would come up, and the air was full of the ghastly dew, as Thomas Hardy called it, the sweat, the perspiration from everybody, and she would dance the whole time. definitely remember them two. So many dancers as well.
So fit, really lovely.
I went to the Warehorn, Kaylee, where Caris was calling, and I got a dance wrong, and Pete Collinson told me off. And then I went in the kitchen. I said to my friend, "I've just met Kathy Lesurf." I was so excited.
We never wanted to go home in those days, did we?
No.
They'd finish and we'd keep playing and we'd keep dancing until finally someone would give up the ghost. But it was such a magical time, and the sun always shone.
Lovely. And can I just say that, as Elaine has mentioned Warehorn, and I'm remembering that, I'd really like to remember the lovely Ron Saunders.
Yeah,
absolutely.
The first Jack and those Kayleys he organised.
Yeah,
yeah.
And before that, there was a connection. Before we got John, and before we got Morris, and before we got Kayleys and Kaylee Band, I seem to remember there was a dance club at Warehorn. Elaine, you'll remind me. Is this the one that you?
Yes, it was adult education to start with. And then we formed our own club at the Warehorn Dance Club. That's when I met John and Alan.
Right.
There.
Do you remember a lady called Nora?
I think so, yes.
Nora was part of a very early, I think the original folk revival. She might have even known Cecil Sharp, I don't know. But Nora used to run a traditional dance, English dance club, but she did it with records.
Oh yeah, I do remember.
78s. And I seem to remember that I invaded one, because I was at the university in Canterbury, and as was Alan and Ian at the time as well. And I seem to remember invading one of her traditional dance clubs, a bunch of unruly students, and we didn't have a clue, and we just hurled ourselves into these really complicated dances. And she wasn't best pleased, bless her, was Nora. Anyway.
I remember being quite shocked going to my first Kaylee at Cecil Sharp House, where it was all very EFTUS, all very stately, nothing like the exuberant way we used to throw ourselves around the floor. Yeah. And thinking, yeah, this can't possibly be the same tradition. And then watching them loosen up over the years.
Excellent. Just a reminder to anyone watching that we can take some questions if you want as well. I'm coming back to the procession, because it's not just the Jack and the Morris. There's all sorts of other characters as well. The Hood and Horse, we saw the film earlier, and Boris the Bear, and Marion and Robin. Where did all that come from?
I can tell you that we had the Salami Brothers come down, because we always used to have street theatre as well in the procession. And the Salami Brothers came down, and Taffy Thomas was dressed as a bear. Well, he was a very naughty bear. He would get on the backs of motorbikes and he would get in cars with people. Sometimes we'd lose him and then he would reappear from somewhere else on the back of somebody else's motorbike or something like that. And then we connected it with the pub that's down near the Duke of Cumberland, and it was called the Bear and Key. And then we discovered that at Poverty Point, the sailors used to gather to go out in the oyster yawls, and they would bring a dancing bear to entertain them. So we said, great, let's have a bear, but not a real one. Hence Boris, well, that was what Taffy was called at the time. Boris became a symbol that connected with Whitstable, so we continued to use it.
I think the fabulous Salami Brothers would have given health and safety a bit of a shock these days.
Oh, how wonderful to see photographs of Richie Three Balls Taylor at his prime in that great sequence of photos earlier. My goodness, that took us back.
I still have my fire eating certificate. I bet we wouldn't be allowed to do that these days.
I mean,
There
we
was
went.
a horse with oyster, if I remember, and it's always said that if you were a bad dancer, you were put in the horse. So we tried to avoid the horse.
It's jolly hard work being in that horse, I can tell you. Done it once, yes. James Frost came along and he was so keen and eager, and I did need someone to look after it. And he's done a great job. He really has.
Yeah, he's done brilliantly. And then Robin and Marion, have they been there since the start of this? Are they there on the first procession?
Yeah, I was the first Maid Marian, and my boyfriend Stuart was the first Robin Hood.
Yeah.
So the tradition of just roping in someone has been there from the very beginning.
Well, that came from Wallace Harvey.
You
will show them. Wallace Harvey remembered Robin Hood and Maid Marian at the beginning of the processions that used to happen down at the Belmont Cricket Ground, and little boys and girls dressed in white. And they had a maypole. That's what he remembered, and that was why we wanted to include that, not the little girls and boys in white, but certainly Robin Hood and Maid Marian.
Mm-hmm.
And
we did have the little girls in white one, at least one year. We used to have the endowed girls. Do you remember?
The girls' school, that's right.
Maypole dancing, and yeah, Elaine, hold it up again, because that's Maid Marian and Robin Hood in the photo.
Yeah,
they were both part of the characters of the tradition, as far as we were concerned, and
yeah,
I mean, they occur in quite a number of traditions. But also, what was great was that who got chosen is like on show for the whole time there with the Jack. So they had to be good dancers.
Yes.
Sometimes, you wanted it, and sometimes you didn't want to be part of it, because you got to be a bit of a natural exhibitionist to go there. And of course, the pairing of the man and the woman was always very interesting. Who would be Jack and who would be Maid Marian? And they had to do a heck of a lot of dancing. They really did for the whole procession, and that's quite a long procession getting up to the castle grounds there.
And if you remember, when we first started, we started halfway up the hill, didn't we?
Yeah, it got longer. Yeah.
Yeah, it was much longer when we first started. Then we cut it down a bit.
Yeah, both our daughters have been Maid Marian. That was a privilege, and through my years of oyster, I was a great regret that nobody ever asked me.
Oh.
But the reason being is Ray wouldn't do it. So
no, they did. The year they asked Elaine to do it, she said, "Oh, that'd be great," but I'd already done my legging, so I couldn't do it. But luckily, I didn't do it, because on that, I think we'd only got 4 musicians in the band. So it's a good job I didn't do it. Otherwise, I might not have been a band at all. Anyway, that's my excuse.
At one point, I had a terrific row with the council people, because they were celebrating the anniversary of the Invicta steam engine. And I went to a meeting where they were discussing all this, and they said, well, we're going to have vintage cars, and the train will be on a low loader, and that will lead the procession, and we will start from the slopes. And I stood up and I said, no, you can't do that. I said, the Morris dancers will be coming from the other end of town, and they will dance all over your vintage cars if you're not very careful. Whereupon they immediately turned around and said, okay, we'll start from your end. And that's what happened. And that was the most fantastic year, because most people came to see the train, but they stayed on for us. And we got the most amazing applause. It really was a brilliant year.
I think credit to you, Dixie, really also, and your role and your position within Whitstable, in that we came in and we made this festival, and we created something and took it on. But you and the people of Whitstable made it a part of Whitstable's annual events. It made a special thing, and the castle grounds were always full. People stood it and watched us process through, it became an event for the town as well as for us.
Yeah.
And that takes some doing, and that's, I mean, that is really down to you and the work that you put in, and we thank you.
Yeah.
And I think, John, when I danced procession, it was so magical, but you could see that the audience, the people in the street, were the same people. They came year after year to watch it.
Yeah.
And, you know, you were waving to people that you vaguely knew. It was just amazing. Well, and it's still going to continue to be amazing, I know.
I mean, you said it earlier, that lovely thing with tradition is that people get that sense of something happening at a particular time. And as we all went down towards the Duke of Cumberland, and you know that we waited dance-wise, the Jack was going to come out, and that place was absolutely swarming with people. It was rammed with people. Often the salamis would perform there in the intervening time, and just picking up the bear and take around. That was, you know, the electricity was there because everyone anticipated, and the crowds just got bigger. I remember at a certain point, waiting for that moment. And yeah, you could see at the side of the street, people actually thought, "What the heck's this?" But it was part of their world as well.
I love the fact that we could include all of the speciality acts, so to speak, because I've got a list here, and the first street performers who came were Ginger Street Theatre, Val and Leicester, who were very magical. We had Major Mustard.
Oh, yes.
Brilliant show with Punch and Judy and what have you. And then Dr. Sunshine, Dave, Vic and Maggie came for many years. And people would always say, you know, when's Dr. Sunshine coming back? Because they loved it. And the Salami Brothers, of course, with Three Balls Ricky at the time. They created mayhem, I tell you, absolute mayhem. But the audience absolutely loved them to bits. And Ticklish All Sorts, the children absolutely adored them. And they really had a good time. And they came for a good few years, actually, until where they lived, they started to doing their own festival. So obviously they didn't come anymore. But we had some amazing, amazing things happen, really, with all these street theatres, and they were just great. And even the Linley joined in because they had a mama's side that came and performed on the lawn, which was really good. So, you know, we did involve the town as well. And all the holders.
Yeah, I remember that we used to, in the early days, finish the evening off at the Tankerton Arms.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so there'd be all the hoo-ha during the day, which, you know, people accepted. But then there would be some drinking and a bit of a session in the evening. And I remember Ron deciding to go for a wander around about, I don't know, 10, 11 o'clock at night, something like that, and encountering some of the youth of the town. He was still in the Jack in the Green costume. And one of them just stopped dead, middle of lighting a fag or whatever, and said, "Oh, it's a walking bush." The walking bush.
It's on my CV.
I had a story told to me by a friend whose mother actually lived to be 100 years old. And she said, my mother was telling me this story one day. She said, when Jack in the Green came out, she said there was a very pregnant lady who was watching the procession. And then, of course, the Jack caught light. And she said it gave her such a shock that she went immediately into labour. And when the child was born, it was a little girl, and she called her May.
Brilliant.
Where did this story come from, Dixie?
It came from a lady I know, and I knew her mother, who did live to 100 years old, but she never told me, but she told Eunice when Eunice was younger.
So is this the story we were talking about earlier when the Jack in the Green burnt in Whitstable?
Yes.
Right, so you found some evidence of that happening.
Brilliant. A living reference.
You're going to have to stop now, Dixie. We're running out of time, but thank you everyone for it's absolutely flown by. It's been brilliant, really interesting. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Dixie, I think you want to say thank you to some people who've helped.
Yes, I've said thank you to all the wonderful street theatre people who came, and a big thank you to 6 Whitstable Scouts for always dressing the Jack so beautifully, and to Strode Park for letting us use all their greenery from the gardens as they have done for years. And yeah, the street and the dancers, all the dancers, every kind of Morris dancers have come to Whitstable that you can think of, I think. And they have added such variety to the kind of things that we've gone on. And we had so many different sides. I can't name them all, but we have had so many. I bet Elaine probably can.
Well, if I looked at my leaflets, I'd name them all, but it's been amazing. And what has been so brilliant is we've made so many friends over the years through this. You go to a festival and to walk 100 yards takes you 2 hours. We should keep meeting people. It's been amazing. Yeah,
that is so true. But thank you all for being here today, and it's been a joy to be with you. It really has. So thank you for all the effort that you've all put in, and thank you to our audience for watching us. I do hope you've had a brilliant day. I know I have, and I think I'm going to cry.
I'd just like to say on behalf of everyone, I think, just thank you, Dixie, for starting this and being the driving force behind it through such a long time. It's been brilliant, and it's it's such a magical thing that you've created and you've sort of tended and kept going through the years. It's brilliant, and we love it.
You've only got to look at the smiles that have been on everybody's faces for the last hour to know what magic you did, madam. Thank you all very much. Lovely to see you all.
And can we say thank you to Kerry and Quentin for sorting it all out?
Yeah,
fantastic.
Thank you.